What's up YouTube, Dan Reese here from ZebranoWoodcraft.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make one of these rose gold and mahogany rings with a brass guitar string inlay. So this week I saw that Patrick Adair released a video where he made like some superconductor ring with a gold inside, and David Pacino from Make Something also released a video on wooden rings. So I thought I'd dip my oar in and show you guys that I can now make these. So gold and wood hybrid rings like these are available in my Etsy shop, or you can find my work at Zebrano Woodcraft on Instagram or everywhere else. So if you like it and you want to put a ring on it, hit me up. If you're also interested in delving deeper into metal smithing and making jewelry and running an online business, then go and check out a website called Skillshare.com, which will give you access to like over 20,000 classes that will help you on all aspects of running a creative business and also making cool stuff by hand as well. It's normally $15 a month, which is about a tenner, but if you use my link to sign up, then you actually get 2 months for free. It's 2 free months. You got nothing to lose. Go and check out Skillshare.com. But until then, on with the video. Do you have questions about this? Leave me a comment and I've got answers. Hell yeah. So this pair of rings actually began with a single sheet of 0.7mm thick 9-carat rose gold, and I had to make this one sheet into 2 rings. So I scored a line with the calipers and then used my jewelry store to cut the sheet into 2 strips. So one of the rings was meant to be a 6mm wide and the other was 3mm. So in this video I'll show you how I made the wider ring. Basically, after I'd sliced the sheet in half, I then had to cut away a little bit off the end of the sheet so that I had just enough gold to make my size 9 6mm wide ring. After cutting my slice of metal, I then filed down the edge I just sawed so that it was nice and smooth, and then I began getting the ring ready for soldering. So the first step was to make a rough ring shape by bending the metal with this half round nose pliers, and all I'm doing is just trying to get both edges of the ring to meet up in the middle so that I have a rough join. Then, to make that join as seamless as possible, I ran a jeweler's saw down the seam and just did a bit of filing so that both of the edges connected up nicely. Then on to soldering. So previous to the soldering, I actually bathed the ring in pickle and then bicarb of soda to clean off any oxidization, and then just put a bit of flux onto the seam and a few little tiny pieces of 9-carat easy gold solder, and then all I did was heat up the ring evenly with my blowtorch until the flux kind of melted away, and then focus the flame onto the solder until it ran into the seam. Again, I pickled the ring again to get the oxidization off, and then kind of hammered it into a rough ring shape and just did a bit of sanding just to see where I was and get myself a rough looking golden ring like this. So there's the rough rose gold ring, which would form the inside of my wooden wedding ring. But the seam was a bit kind of ugly, so I just needed to clean that up a bit, which I did with a very light grit on my rotary tool, and just zipped a bit of sandpaper up the inside just to kind of remove any scratches and get it nice and smooth so it would be comfortable to wear. And then I've just got this new contraption, which is a ring sizer upper, a ring stretcher. So I just stretched the ring up until it was a perfect size 9, and then we were ready to move on to the next stage. Alrighty then team, we've got the gold ring made. It's nice and sanded on the inside and smooth. The seam is practically invisible. And if you look closely, I've just basically scored lines around the outside and kind of roughed it up. Because the next thing to do is to wrap some wood around it. So, I'll show you how I got this prepared, and then we'll make this gold ring into a wooden ring with a guitar string inlay. Oh yeah! To make the outside of the ring, I used the bent wood method, and I did this with a piece of mahogany veneer. So all I did was use an X-Acto knife to cut a 10mm wide slice of the wood, and then I just sanded down the edge of that slice of wood until it was as thin as paper, which would make it easy to wrap around the gold ring. And then to make it bendy, I just dunked it in some water for about 20 minutes, and then took it out and wrapped it up in a bit of masking tape and waited for it to dry. And then when it did dry, I just removed the masking tape like this, and I was left with a beautiful wooden swirl, which would form a lovely bent wood ring around the outside of my gold ring. I sanded down the other edge of the wood so that both edges would be nice and paper thin, and then I moved on to wrapping the wood around the gold. So to do this, I should have been wearing gloves, but I was just so excited I forgot to put them on. So if you do end up doing something like this, wear gloves, just in case you stick your fingers to anything. I'm quite used to it by now though, so it's all good. But basically all I did was apply a bit of super glue, a bit at a time, and then started gluing the wood to the gold. I used a cocktail stick for this, just applying small amounts of glue and then carefully sticking down the wood, just sort of like a centimetre or two at a time, trying to really make sure that the wood was wrapped nice and tight around the gold. And in the end, I ended up forming 2 layers of wood around the outside of the gold ring, if that makes sense. After the glue up, I sanded down the edges of the wood and gold ring with a few grits of sandpaper just put down on my desk, and then I was left with quite a nice promising looking ring, if I'm honest. So the next stage was to move on to the inlay. So for this I used a marking gauge to score a line down the centre of the ring, and then I moved over to my lathe with a triangle file and just kind of like carved out that inlay. I made that inlay channel thick enough and deep enough to accommodate one of these brass guitar strings, and then I just cut a piece of the string with a wire snippers and filed down the edge, and then again with my trusty half round nose pliers I kind of started shaping that string into a rough ring shape so that it would stay round, and wrapping it into the inlay channel would be nice and easy. As it turned out, guitar string inlays are pretty damn tricky. So tricky in fact that I didn't manage to actually get the camera in focus while I was gluing the guitar string in. But pretty much all I did was applied a small amount of glue into the inlay channel, and then began pressing that guitar string in until the glue cured and the guitar string was all glued in. And using my super ring making skills, I'd managed to cut just the right amount of guitar string so that it was basically seamless, and then just glued in the rest of the string. This is much harder than it looks, but in the end I was left with a really nice guitar string inlay with a really minimal seam that I think you'd have to look twice to see. So before applying a finish to the wood, I took the ring over and mounted it on that god-awful spindle that I really need to replace, and then I just used a few grits of sandpaper to kind of give the guitar string a nice ground down look, and also make the wood nice and smooth, ready for a finish. And then here we go, there's a secret sauce finish for you. I used super glue, which is cyanoacrylate glue, and I just applied multiple layers to the edges and the outside of the ring. In between every single coat, I used an activator spray, which stops the glue from kind of like bubbling or going white or blooming. And this results in a very nice, glassy, waterproof and shiny finish, which accentuates the wood and also gives excellent protection. So in the end, I applied about 8 coats to the outside of the ring and 8 coats to each edge. And previous to finishing, the edges of the ring were dead flat so that I could apply a few layers of finish, and then in the polishing stage I could shape over the edges and give the inside like a tapered kind of comfort fit. So after applying all those layers of super glue finish, the ring is looking quite rough and ready, but time to move on to polishing. So to polish the outside edges and a little bit of the inside as well, I just mounted the ring into some pin jaws on my lathe and then proceeded to wet sand the outside edges, kind of working in that taper as I mentioned earlier. And then I did pretty much the same for the outside, mounted it onto a spindle and just worked my way from like a 400 grit to 600, 800, 1200 and 2000 grit until the surface was nice and smooth. There's no kind of dinks or marks in it. And then to bring out that final shine, I used one of my new favourite products, the chestnut burnishing cream. Just applied a bit in, rubbed it in, turned the lathe up a little bit, and then wax on, wax off. Voila! Nice, shiny looking, sexy looking ring. Then all I did was sanded the inside of the ring again with a bit of emery paper just to remove any scratches, and then whipped over with a Tripoli and Rouge polishing compounds, which really brought a nice shine to the gold. So that's it, bro. That's the end of the video. I am so pleased with the way that this ring turned out. In fact, the pair of rings turned out really nice. This is the man's ring, which is a bit wider at 6mm and has the bronze guitar string, and the female ring is a bit thinner and has a mandolin string. Absolutely awesome project. Like I said, more rings like this are coming to my shop, so check that out on Etsy, and go and get your 3 months on Skillshare and learn some stuff, bro. See you in the next one.